researches and teaches cultural politics of health, sport, and the body. Her book, Pink Ribbons, Inc., Breast Cancer and the Politics of Philanthropy, is the subject of a recently made National Film Board documentary. Ms. King has studied the media representation of HIV/AIDS, breast cancer philanthropy, racial politics of volunteerism, and the relationship between commercial sport culture and militarization. Do you find consistencies in these topics? And if so, can you explain what they are?
Often people ask me how all of those things relate. I've written about the NFL and breast cancer and militarization, and I guess I do see a connection between them in all my work. I'm interested in how corporations and governments and nonprofit organizations work together to respond to, but also I argue to produce certain kinds of social problems.
You wrote a book titled Pink Ribbons, Inc., Breast Cancer and the Politics of Philanthropy. What sparked your interest in the Pink Ribbon campaign exactly?
Well, because I had this long-standing interest in women's health, in about the mid to late 1990s I was doing my PhD work in the United States, and I began to notice this proliferation of pink ribbon products on the shelves, and also of fundraising events like the Race for the Cure and the Run for the Cure. And I'm a naturally skeptical person, and I do critical sociological work, so I wanted to find out what that was about, why those kinds of events and those kinds of promotions were emerging at that time, and what effect they were actually having on, for example, people with breast cancer, or on biomedical research, or on how the culture as a whole thinks about the disease.
That's interesting. And your book has become a film funded by the National Film Board. Can you explain to us the premise behind the film?
Certainly. Well, it's actually based quite closely on the book. Ravita Din, who's the executive producer, had read my book, and she'd also read an article, magazine article by well-known critic Barbara Ehrenreich called Welcome to Cancerland, where she describes her experiences with the pink ribbon upon being diagnosed with breast cancer and how problematic she found that whole culture. And so she read her piece and she read my book, and she imagined that as a film, and then approached me and asked if I would be willing to give her the rights. As it turned out, I didn't own them, the publisher did. What she ended up doing, which I didn't necessarily know was going to be the case, I'm not sure that she did, was actually replicating quite closely the arguments and even the chapter structure of the book in the documentary itself.
And a lot of young adults are attracted to these corporations, which pair themselves with a certain cause sometimes, but at the same time we are tech savvy and may detect certain insincerities.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it works on us?
Well, certainly the number of corporations taking up the breast cancer cause would suggest that they do very well by it. And there's lots of research in marketing to show that cause-related marketing, that is selling a product with the promise that a percentage of the sale price will go to X or Y cause, works very well. However, I think that people are skeptical, and I think people of your generation aren't passive dupes who automatically assume that the money is going to a good cause and the money's actually going to get to that cause and then it's going to where they say it's going to go. But what's interesting about the research is that even though people are aware of that, it doesn't actually stop them from buying the product, because you're faced with two choices. One product that, or more than two often, but let's just say two, one product that doesn't promise to donate and one that does. And I think people think, well, why not buy the one that does? It's not costing me anymore. Interestingly enough, the research shows, though, that when people do that, they're less likely to give money in other contexts. And so it may actually not be overall a very good thing for charities, because it's not, the money that's raised is very small generally, and it might be better for people to in fact donate directly to causes they support.
And heart disease does kill more women than breast cancer does, but I associate a woman's disease with breast cancer because of the familiarity with the ribbons.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have to say a little bit about that?
It's a really interesting question. Lung disease kills more women, stroke kills more women, heart disease kills more women in Canada every year. So why is that? Why do we have the attention on breast cancer?
Right.
And I think that's because it's associated, the breast is associated with sex and it's associated with motherhood, and those are two very important values in our culture. It's also the case that now, and this didn't used to be the case, but now breast cancer is not understood to be an outcome of poor lifestyle choices. And rightly or wrongly, I would say wrongly, unfortunately, heart disease and lung cancer are. We have very much a blame the victim mentality towards those diseases. And so they're just, those constituencies are not in a position to drum up the kind of support that we've seen aroused around breast cancer.
That makes sense. And have you ever found that anyone is offended by your theory? And if so, can you offer a reason as to why that may be?
It's a good question. Offended, I don't know. Angry, probably. Certainly the breast cancer organizations, the larger ones, I think are not happy with the arguments. Certainly the woman representing the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation on the CBC today was not. So that much I know. The interesting thing is that I've been really surprised by how supportive the public has been. So I have had hundreds of emails and phone calls and letters over the years in response to people either reading the book or seeing me talk on TV or something like that. And I can count on one hand the number of negative or critical responses. And I think that really shows that what I did was just tap into an already existing discomfort that people had with what's going on. And so that's really very positive. Unfortunately, it hasn't resulted in a big change in the way we approach the disease, but I'm hoping with the film and the larger audiences that will reach, that we'll see a bigger transformation.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you had a positive response for the most part. And are there any new projects that you're currently working on? Is there something you'd like to tell us about?
Well, I'm working on a project that is vaguely related to the breast cancer work. It's still critical work on health, but I'm looking at prescription painkillers in contemporary culture, so Oxycontin, that kind of thing, and trying to understand why it is that we're in a situation where so many people are apparently dependent on them, and what that suggests about our culture at large. So that's what I'm doing. It's a local project in Kingston, interviewing people who use painkillers and people who prescribe and treat the people who use painkillers.
So we've got another book coming up, maybe.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us today. It was great hearing all about your upcoming projects, and we wish you the best of luck with the screening to come.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.